Good evening, guys. Kind of going with the theme that I had promised of things you don't see very often. Figured I would take some of these out and shoot a little video with these guys. These guys are Rakovnik Rollers. They are called Rakovnícky kotrlák, where they come from. They are a Bohemian breed. Bohemia is now in the Czech Republic. At one time, Bohemia was its own kingdom up until the 19th century. And my family happened to be Bohemian. We are Bohemian Romany gypsies. I've actually had an interest in this breed for a long time. I first saw them many years ago when I was a kid. There was a photo of a blue magpie in Wendell Levi's book, The Pigeon, in the later edition, in the 1957 revised edition. And at that time, it was pretty much an unknown breed in North America and elsewhere. Kind of only came to the attention of people through the efforts of the late Lynn Hummel, who had imported Bohemian tiger swallows from the Czech Republic. It was very difficult at the time. Obviously, it was Czechoslovakia. It was Czechoslovakia at that time, and obviously that was a communist country in South Central Europe, and that is where my mother's family came from. Is Bohemia. So I had a pretty high interest in the fact that it was a breed that had come from where my family had come from and was a performing breed. So I had a lot of interest in them. I tried a lot of years ago to import them, pre-internet, kind of right after the wall came down, and probably 1991 or 1992. After the Velvet Revolution, and my efforts were not successful at the time. My great-grandparents insisted that after we came to this country we would speak English, so I did not speak any of the languages he spoke, which were Czech and Hungarian and German and Romany, and he also spoke Spanish. And he spoke a little bit of Romanian also, because that's kind of where a lot of those places come together, obviously with the exception of Spain. That was just a language he learned to speak before he came to this country. He thought it would be a smart thing to do. Rumor has it he thought about going to Mexico at first. It's kind of the rumor. Never been able to authenticate that or not. So I had a high interest in importing, but it just didn't quite go that way. Importation at that time was expensive and it was difficult, and especially if you didn't speak the language, and you would have to make long distance phone calls and hire translators, and it was a big pain in the ass, basically. Not like it is now. It's a little easier today. It's lots of brokers who import birds from Europe. So I never forgot these birds. I'd never seen them. I just had heard about them, but was especially enamored because the photo I saw was of basically a blue gansel or a blue magpie. This is kind of similar to the same marking you see in Comorner tumblers, and also Felagahaza tumblers from Hungary, and Koros, and a lot of breeds like that. Basically a general theme of a magpie. And I actually really like blue and white pigeons. I like blue bars, especially if they're marked. I like blue bill necks, and I like blue badges, and I like blue bald heads, and blue saddles, and things of that nature, and blue white wings. And so I was really interested in the blues, followed by the blacks. And like I said, I completely forgot about them. And one day I was just kind of going through the internet, and I found that there was a fellow by the name of Richard Conway who was not really too far from me. He was only 50 or 60 miles from me, kind of or air miles. a little bit further by road, because I do live in a rural area, and got to go down the coastal highway and all that. And he had an ad in Purebred Pigeon, and I sent him an email and heard back from him, and he said he would be more than happy to help. And he also told me that a fellow by the name of Kim LaFlamme, who I knew about because he flew American flying tumblers and American rollers, also had some, and Kim was pretty close by to me, so I bought a couple pair from Richard. First pair were 2 pair of blues and 2 pair of blacks, and I also got some reds and some yellows. The reds and yellows were not well marked, but the blues and blacks were really well marked pigeons. In fact, one of them had one of the blues and one of the blacks he had shown quite a bit, and it had done pretty well for him. Not that I was interested so much in that. I just wanted to breed them and fly them. So needless to say, I got some help from Richard to get him. He was responsible for importing them, and he imported magpies, and he was working on selfs the last time I talked to Richard. And then I got some assistance through Kim. Kim had gotten some from Richard. He was actually going to cross them to his American flying tumblers to create some magpie AFTs. So he had quite a few, and he helped me out with those. And obviously Richard. Richard's unfortunately no longer with us. I'm not sure the details, but he passed away during the fall months here, October, November this year. But these are Rakovniks. With Richard gone, I don't really know what the breed's going to do. Nobody knows too much what's going to happen to his pigeons or what has happened to him. We don't know if he made arrangements to leave them to people. But needless to say, as far as I know, I've got one of the bigger studs of these in the country. There are a few here and there. People have 1 or 2 pair. I have quite a few pair. I have, probably 12 or 13 pair right now in the breeding loft, and quite a few young birds from last year. Working on putting enough together to start flying them. And they consider them rollers, but they're actually more of a horizontal performing breed. So when they perform, instead of dropping like a Birmingham roller, they basically roll into the rear of the kit, more or less on a horizontal plane. Helmets also perform that way, and Cremorners used to perform that way. That was a common means of performance among some European breeds, especially in the South Central Europe. And I did manage to fly a few earlier this year. I started them out. I didn't have too many to start the year, so I kind of had a slow start, and the breeding season in general was a slow start in 2022. So I wound up putting them in with a young kid of Birmingham's. And I actually found they flew in the complete opposite direction of the Birminghams. There were only 4 or 5 of them in the kit, but the Birminghams would fly to the left, to the left, to the left, and the Rakovniks to the right, to the right, to the right, always in the opposite direction of the Birminghams, which is interesting, flying on an opposite wing from them. And needless to say, they kind of created a lot of havoc in that kit, so I did take them out, and I haven't flown anymore since then. About the time I took them out, the hawks were getting pretty bad, and they fly a little slower than the Birminghams do. So needless to say, I haven't flown anymore. I'm going to breed and fly quite a few this year, maybe 50 or 60. His blue check has actually been in a kit box, whereas these other 2 I had in the we're still in the breeding loft. Hadn't taken them away from the breeders yet, so just kind of a big open loft full of them. But that is what they are. They are Rakovnik Rollers, or Rakovník kotrlák, and very, very rare breed. Very, very well known in the Czech Republic, but not so much outside the Czech Republic. There's a few people who have flown them in Germany and whatnot, and they have flown them in mobile kit competitions in Germany and France and a couple of other European countries where mobile flying is very, very common, and they have a lot of their competitions are mobile loft. but you don't see them here. Like I said, there's very, very few. Richard had imported some, and I don't know if anybody else had imported them or not, but he was certainly responsible for them. He was getting ready to import some selfs right near the end. Last time I talked to him, there is a variety that's they're Gazi marked. They have a covered head and they have covered windshields and a covered tail, kind of like a Gazi Modena. And I was really interested in those, and I had talked to Richard about possibly including some of those in the next import he was going to do. He was supposed to do that this fall, and we lost touch before fall came, and it just didn't happen. And then I had heard that from Kim LaFlamme, he went down to a show down that way and expected to see Richard, and Richard wasn't there, and he was told that he was gone, which is really unfortunate. He was a super nice guy, and he had done a lot of things for the breeds he was interested in. He had Catalonian tumblers of various colors, and some of them had even disappeared in Catalonia, and he had actually sent birds back to Catalonia, so they still had that color variety. So he was that sort of guy. Was very serious about his pigeons, and was also a great cattle breeder. Is part of how he made his living. He bred cattle. So a very, very good breeder, and very, very concerned about the welfare of the breeds that interested him. So, a major loss to the pigeon fans here, to the pigeon fancy of the breeds he raised. He was Western representative for the Portuguese Tumbler Club of America. So that's a pretty big blow to that breed, and obviously to this breed also, where he was really one of the only guys with him and had been responsible for importing him. So I am very, very grateful to Richard, as well as Kim, for helping me get these, this breed, which was a lifelong dream to get them and fly them in the future. So that is it, guys. I hope you liked the video. Please hit subscribe, hit like. Lots more to see. We're going to fly a whole bunch of these this year. I'm going to fly like I said, I'll probably breed about 100 of them or so. That'll be easy enough out of how many pairs I've got. Certainly going to be more than 50. Like I said, apply the chicken math to the pigeons. So thank you all for watching. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.